Okay. Anyways. Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club. Today I want to do my July wrap up and talk about the books that I read in the month of July. And I also want to talk a little bit about my reading plans going forward and a little bit of a channel update, like a tiny one. But let's start with the books that I read in July. So the first book I read in July was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. And I started out listening to this on audiobook, which I'm not sure was a great idea. It's a sci-fi time travel romance, I would say. And I picked this for my sci-fi prompt from my TBR jar. The whole book is structured in letters that the main characters, Red and Blue, send to each other. And it's very lyrical and sort of poetic, and nothing is straightforward in this writing. And so it was a little bit difficult for me to understand what was going on at all, listening to the audiobook. And there were parts that I thought were like beautifully written, and so I enjoyed that, and like I sort of saw how that could be good, but I had no clue what was going on and what was happening and what was plot and what was metaphor. I think most of it went over my head, so I'm not really sure what happened in the first half of the book. I think I was at 40% or something like that. When Cat at Curious Cat and I discovered somehow that we were both reading it and that we were both sort of having a weird time with it. So we decided to give it one last effort and read it as a buddy read. And that's when I also went and got the physical copy from the library so that I could listen to it and read the physical book at the same time, which I think was a good decision. And I think that if you're interested in reading this book, I would definitely recommend to have the physical copy or like ebook, like have the text in front of you. I think the audiobook helped to sort of keep momentum going forward, because it's easy to get stuck in the wordings of things. Half of it felt like nonsense gibberish to me. I'm sure I missed a lot of references and a lot of beautifully crafted little things. But I didn't want to have to work that hard for it. Maybe I'm too dumb for it. I don't know. Like I said, there were parts that I appreciated, but also some things that just sounded pretentious to me. So it's kind of difficult to explain the plot of the book, and I'm not sure I even know the whole plot. But there's time travel involved, and these two agents, Red and Blue, are on opposite sides in this time war, and they're trying to win, and at the same time they're sending letters to each other even though they're enemies, and they have to do it in a secretive way so that they don't get caught by their bosses, basically. It starts out pretty rude, or like they're writing to each other as if they are enemies and just like little jabs at each other, which I find annoying to begin with. I'm so sick of that kind of communication. Yeah, so that's how their relationship starts out, and then they fall in love somehow. And it was very unclear to me what that was based on. To me, it felt like they were just the only person who saw each other, like, at all. There was no like depth to their relationship as far as I could tell. It was just like, when you're the only one who sees me as an individual at all, so I'm gonna love you. I did want to finish this and see how it ended, because I had heard that the ending was going to save the whole thing, and I did think that the ending saved it a little bit and like made it a little bit more worth it, but it wasn't as mind-blowing as I would have hoped. I would say it was a 3-star read for me. It was fine, I guess, and I'm sort of glad I read it, because now I don't have to be curious about it anymore. And if you like sci-fi and sort of time travel and poetic prose, then this is probably perfect for you. I didn't love it. It took me forever to get through, and it's not a big book at all. It's under 200 pages, and like the text is pretty big, and like the spacing is big, and the margins are big, and like it really should not have taken me 2 weeks to get through this. I just felt stupid the whole way through, and I don't know if that was intentional or I don't know. I just didn't find that very enjoyable. And yeah, I don't know if I understood anything correctly. I don't consider myself a stupid person, but I felt dumb reading this. It was kind of middle of the road for me and a bit annoying. But the best part about this book was that the person who had borrowed it before me had left a little note. So in the very back of the book, like on the inside of the cover, they have like pasted a synopsis for the book, and like in there's a little note and it's folded into a heart, and it says, "Are you okay?" And then when you turn it over, it says, "This is how we win the time war." I just thought that was a really cute detail, and it's the kind of thing that you would hope to find in a book like this, but like that never happens. So I was very happy that it did happen, and yeah, I just wanted to show you. So back into the book it goes, and hopefully the next person who checks out this book will find it as well. The next book I read was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. And this was a book that I picked for book club. I wanted to read this because it was written in the 90s, and it was set in the future year of 2024, which is now. And I'm not going to talk about this a lot because I'm going to talk about it more in the book club video that is coming out after this at some point. I actually read the Swedish translation of this, but this cover is not as pretty as the other one. So this is the first part of a duology, and in this we follow Lauren, who is a 15-year-old, I think, black teenager in Los Angeles, and the world is pretty much crap. There is a lot of violence and poverty, unemployment, homelessness, cost of living is really high, and you pretty much have to be very rich to be safe. There's this drug going around which makes people who take it want to set fire to things. The book is written in a diary format by Lauren. Her father is a pastor, but she doesn't really believe in that religion. She is sort of developing her own religion, and she lives with her family in this gated community with a wall around it to keep out the poor and desperate people. And then one day that all sort of breaks down, and she has to leave everything behind. And we follow her on her journey and the people that she walks with. She also has this hyper empathy that makes her feel other people's pain and pleasure in her own physical body. So if she sees someone getting shot, she feels that pain herself. I wasn't blown away by this. Maybe my expectations were too high, or I expected something different. I'm not really sure. I still want to read the second part, which is Parable of the Talents, which I'm gonna buddy read with Chelsea at Libraries and Lattes and Kat at Curious Cat at the end of August. I can't really judge this book based on I feel like I've only read half of a book and I really want to know what happens in the second part because I have a feeling that's going to be more interesting to me. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I'm going to talk about this more in the book club video, so I think that's all I'm going to say for now. So the next book I was gonna read for book club was 1984 by George Orwell, and I just felt like I can't read Parable of the Sower and 1984 back to back. Like I need a little bit of a palate cleanser in between those very dystopian books. So I decided to read one of the short stories in The Grandmothers by Doris Lessing. This is a short story collection with 4 short stories, and I read the first one, which is called The Grandmothers. I was pleasantly surprised, I have to say. I've never read anything by Doris Lessing before, but she is a Nobel Prize winner, and that made a lot of sense to me. Like from the first page, the writing in this is just on another level. There were several words that I was like, I have to look these up because I don't know what they mean. But it's so intense. Like the first scene in this story is so simple, and at the same time it's so intense. And I thought that it was gonna be like The Grandmothers. It sounds cozy and heartwarming and, like a grandmother. That's not what that story is at all. It's scandalous, I would say. I don't know how else to describe it without like spoiling the whole thing. I don't know if anyone's interested in reading it, but I would, encourage you to do that. It was, intense and scandalous and nothing like anything I've ever read before. So I'm very curious to read the next 3 stories in this. So far, the first story I would give 4 stars, and we'll see what I think of the rest of the book. So after that, I did pick up 1984 by George Orwell. This was the pick for the prompt classic, I think, from my TBR jar. It's also a dystopian novel set in 1984. There is Big Brother, who is the government, who always sees you and hears you, and there are very strict rules to follow. And we follow Winston, who is 38 and works for the Ministry of Truth. And he works with rewriting history, basically, and adjusting old newspapers to fit the present narrative that the party wants to push. And then he meets Julia, and they started a relationship, and it's all very secretive and forbidden, and they might want to rebel a little bit. And that's the basic story. This was also a book club read, so I'm going to talk about this more in the book club video. And you all asked so many good questions about the 3 book club books, so I think that video is going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of things to discuss. I'm not going to say a lot more what I thought about this book now. You'll have to watch that video. The next book I read was the 3rd book club pick, and that was A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. And this was the pick for heartwarming. It's a Swedish novel, and I read it in Swedish this time. And it is definitely heartwarming. It is sad and heart-wrenching and beautiful and a very emotional book, but it's also funny and sort of cynical, and a really lovely story that I would recommend anyone to read. So we follow Ove, who is a older gentleman who is quite bitter and angry at a lot of things, and we sort of find out throughout the book what he's been through and what made him that way, and what he is planning to do now, and how things get in the way of that. This one is an easy 5-star rating from me. I loved it, and lots to talk about this as well, but I'm gonna do that in the book club video. So now we're on to my current reads, and I have started The Witching Tide by Margaret Meyer. This was the pick for my library prompt. I had a prompt to borrow a book from the library, and this is the one that I grabbed in my 3 minutes of choosing a book. It said witches on it, or like witching tide, and it had gold on the cover, so that was what I based that decision on. So far, I'm not super impressed by the writing. I'm also not sure if I'm in a good headspace for a witch hunt right now, after having read Parable of the Sower in 1984. Those were both pretty like draining books, and I'm not really sure I can handle a witch story at the moment. I will continue a little bit and see what I think of it, but I'm not 100% sure I'm going to finish it. We'll see. Because I've also started Hours, finally, by Phillip B. Williams. I've been wanting to read this since it came out, and I'm very excited to finally have gotten to it. I was going to read this over like June, July, August, and have this be my big book summer challenge read. I'm like just now getting started on it. I think I'm on page 17 or something. But yeah, so far so good. I like the writing style of this, and I think the author is a poet. So it's interesting to read a novel by a poet. I haven't gotten very far, like I said, but there was one part where they were like dancing away the pain, basically, and there was just like one page with pretty much no punctuation, and I know that can be a bit much if it's like a really long passage, but it made sense for that specific scene to be like that, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more in this, but it's also a bit heavy, and like there's the topic of slavery in this story, and so I feel like reading that and a witch hunt at the same time after 1984 and Parable of the Sower, it might be a little bit much for me. So I'm gonna prioritize this one and see if I can maybe also include some lighter and happier reads moving forward. Yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of a channel update / reading plans moving forward section. It's really nothing dramatic at all. I just have been thinking a little bit about like how I do my TBRs basically, and how to sort of balance the book club reads with the books that I'm reading just for me. I started out picking 5 books from the TBR jar for me, and then like choosing a couple of those to be the book club reads. And then I sort of switched and picked out the book club picks separately from my own TBR, because I feel like some books I just want to read and they aren't maybe like great books for book club. But then I have to prioritize the book club books because I want to, read those on time and, make the video and discuss the books with you. And so then my personal TBR is like very low priority, and I just end up putting those books back on the shelf without reading them because I didn't have time in that calendar month. And like I would never plan my reading based on the calendar month if it wasn't for booktube. It makes sense for videos and things and like for a book club, but it doesn't make sense for me personally to do it that way. So I've just decided to do the same thing going forward, with the exception that my personal TBR is just going to be my personal TBR until it's done. So not dependent on what month it is. I still have One Little Lie by Lauren Weisberger from my July TBR, which was my boyfriend's pick. And I really want to read this, and it's like a perfect book for summer, and it's a little bit more fun than the other very heavy books that I've been reading. So I don't want to put this back on the shelf without having read it. I want to read it, and then when I'm done with this, I can do my TBR jar whenever I'm finished with this. Like it doesn't have to be connected to a certain calendar month. So let's get into my reading plans going forward. I don't know if this is interesting to you, but I feel like I just have to get an overview for myself, because I have never had this many like reading plans for myself, and I'm a pretty slow reader, so I feel like my like reading calendar is getting full soon, and I want to make sure that I'm reading the books that I really want to read and not just like getting into some whirlwind of, I don't even know. I need to talk about my reading plans. Okay. I don't know why this is funny to me. I don't know if you care about my reading plans, but here they are. In August, we're reading Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller and Pachinko by Min Jin Lee for book club. So these two are my priorities for August. And I'm really excited about both of these. And if you want to join and read these in August, you are very welcome to do so. And then the next priority is Hours by Phillip Williams. And I might not be able to finish this in August. We'll see, but I really want to, make some progress in this because I want to read this. And then, like I mentioned, I want to read the second part to Parable of the Sower, which is called Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, and that's going to be toward the end of August, I think. And then I also want to see if I want to finish The Witching Tide, and I also want to read One Little Lie if I have the time. So those are going to be my books for August. We'll see if I get to all of those in August, but if I don't get to this in August, that's going to come with me into September. I'm not going to do another TBR jar video for my personal TBR until I finish this. I am going to do another TBR jar video for the book club picks for October in the end of August, but we'll get to that. So then in September, I'm doing another buddy read with Kat at Curious Cat, and we're reading The Center by Aisha Manasir Siddiqui. I have that on audiobook, and it's like language and translation, and it seems really good. I think she's read it before, but she's gonna reread it, and I'm gonna read it for the first time. And then there's also the book club picks for September, and the one that we're definitely reading is Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati, which is a retelling of a Greek myth. I'm holding it so weird. I'm really excited about getting to this finally in September, so good voting. And then the other options are The Power by Naomi Alderman, which looks like it's going to be the pick number 2. That's going to be interesting as well. It's a sort of sci-fi dystopia, feminism, teenage girls getting electrocuting powers. And then the third option is The Mercies by Karen Millwood Hargrave, which is, I think it's tied at the moment with Crooked Plow. But I think there were a few comments that said they want to read this, so I think this is slightly above that. I really want to get to Crooked Plow as well, but we'll see how that goes. Oh my goodness. And then I think it's at the end of September that I get my copy of Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. She is a YouTuber who wrote a book, and I'm gonna want to read that pretty much as soon as I get it. So that's going in there somewhere, and that's probably going to be into October. And for October, I was also talking to Mariandrea at Books and Bocadillos and Reney at Beyond Books about reading Beartown by Fredrik Backman. And there are a few more people who are also interested in reading or rereading this. So I'm thinking I'm just going to make this a book club pick for October. And so anyone who wants to join in can read this with us in October. And then in November, we can read the second part, which is Us Against You. And then I think there's a third part, which I don't have, but that can be another book club read possibly, or buddy read, or I don't know, during the winter months sometime. But then I also have Homegoing by Ya Gyasi, which I really want to read this year. I don't think I want to read it as a book club read, but I do want to read it this year. And I also want to read James by Percival Everett. And I would like to read Huckleberry Finn, I think, before reading that, or at least some kind of like summary of that story, because I think I'm gonna understand and enjoy James more if I have a little bit more knowledge of the original story. Those are also going into the schedule somewhere. I think Chelsea and I talked about reading this possibly in November as a buddy read. And then I also want to read the second and third parts to the Prison Healer series before I completely forget what that was about. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read, but I still am curious to find out what happened next. And yeah, I would like to have finished a series this year, and that seems like a bit of fun, and I think I'm gonna need some fun with some of the heavier stories that I'm gonna be reading this fall. I'm excited about all of those books. I don't know how interesting it is for you to know what my plans are, but I guess it gives you an idea of the kind of books that I'm gonna be reading in the coming months. And, you know, we're gonna be adding on to that and, you know, choosing the book club's books for October and November and December. And so there's gonna be other books as well. But those are the books I know right now that I'm going to be reading for the next few months. And yeah, I am looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. I needed to get that off my chest, I guess. And it's, you know, I can't like keep adding more books from the TBR jar and like never getting to finish. It just causes me stress, and I want to be able to enjoy my reading. I'm not here to get stressed out and like feel like I'm having deadlines and failing in my reading. That's not what I want to do. I want to pick books that I'm excited about and then read them and then talk about them. That's it. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna be doing it going forward, and we'll see how that goes. Like everything else on this channel, is just a trial and error, and if something doesn't work, just change it. In terms of other videos, I have been buying a few books, so there's going to be a book haul coming your way in a little bit. I also am working on a June reading vlog, which is going to be coming out in August. It's fine. It's going to be just a video of some things that I did in June. And there's also going to be a July and August vlog, I think, coming like a little bit later. So yeah, those are coming. And then I also have a bunch of tag videos that I want to catch up on. And I also have like ideas for my own tags that I want to make. And yeah, there are lots of things that I want to do on this channel, and like the book club videos, I'm gonna try and get that out as soon as I can as well for the July books. And yeah, I'm excited about all of it, the books and the videos and talking to you about everything. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and being here. Let me know in the comments what books you're most excited for, or anything else that's on your mind. And yeah, I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Which is my big book summer challenge book, my book for big book.